you're in the Wake Forest area?
Yeah.
Okay. What are you up to?
Just causing trouble normally.
That's generally, the whole Linux community, more or less.
Kevin and I work a lot with the media setup on there, and your daughter has actually been working with part of the media team now, and
She likes to do it, so.
she does good.
Yeah.
She also does good from when I can see her. She loves her horseback riding.
Yes. Yes, she does. George is our project, but she loves a lot of things. Most of them tend to be expensive.
Horses are cheap. They just let them out in the field and they eat a little grass, right?
Oh, I wish. When you're ready. We have a minute? Okay.
Countdown. We should have a countdown clock.
I never really liked the management side.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Amy Farley. I am a product manager for Red Hat Enterprise Linux, but today I'm talking to you about our upstream Freeipa project and some of the things that we've been doing there. With me is Mike Ralph. He is also with Red Hat, but he is my test monkey for everything Freeipa related and what we've been putting into it. So we wanted to talk a little bit about some of the exciting things that we've been doing over seems like forever, last year and a half. I just saw, if you guys have LinkedIn and you can find Alexander Bokovoy, he just put a video to some of the things that the developers have pushed into the latest Fedora branch. And we're going to talk about some of those today. And if I can coordinate microphone and clicker, will be good. So we've had a big push and focus on zero trust, right? Everybody hates passwords. Nobody can remember theirs. You've got a password store, but passwords are easily stolen, taken. So we know that we needed to fix that. And in Freeipa, we worked on a couple different ways to help get out of being stuck with username and password to get to a more zero trust friendly multi-factored approach to be able to log in. So we're going to talk today about the work that we've been doing both with what we call external IDP, which is being able to log in with the OAuth2 token. So you have an external IDP, external identity provider like Azure AD or Keycloak, something along that lines, and being able to log in via SSH if you have IDM in the mix to be able to log into a client. And we'll actually have a demo for that today. The other thing we're going to talk about is the one that I said that we've got a video on LinkedIn that Alexander Bokovoy just put out there. In the fall in Fedora, you're going to have the ability to use a FIDO2 token, so a passkey, where you put that in, it's going to associate that with a user identity and be able to log you in, and you don't have to put a password in. So we have both of those things coming.
And if you don't know, basically YubiKey.
Yep.
So.
If you go over just a little bit more for the video, thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Hold the mic up.
A little bit more? Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you've been told. Ooh,
I know.
Shoot out.
I've been told, and this chair is probably where I need to be, so I'm going to scooch this
Okay.
over. Okay.
Makes you happy, although it's a piece of paper for
Well, I was afraid that they weren't going to see me at all, because if I stand behind the laptop, you're just going to see the back of the laptop, so as I'm short. But that's all right. Okay, so that's what's coming. That's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. We wanted to introduce, though, zero trust. You guys have heard about it. Everybody knows that it's not just a product, right? It's a whole strategy of things that you have to do. My biggest beef with security conferences is that they're like, buy my product and you'll have zero trust. I'm like, that's not how this works. Not at all. So know that it's a strategy. We're trying to give you as many different features to help you do a good zero trust strategy as we can. But the big takeaway from it is the strategy is you want to have device and user authentication that is not bound to things that can be easily, spoofed or mimicked. So a lot of these are PKI based, user identity of a cert at the bottom. Then you look at strong access controls, strong segmented access controls, and continuous challenge and response. Those are the key things to a zero trust strategy that's going to help you navigate what you need to do. Now, is there anybody in here who hasn't heard of or doesn't know what Freeipa is? Okay, so I will fill you in. How many of you guys are familiar with something like Active Directory? It's a domain controller. Okay, so Freeipa is an open source domain controller for Linux. And it is built specifically to function similarly to an Active Directory domain, but also to be able to integrate with it as well. So you will store your users. If you're only using Freeipa, you store your users in there. You join your clients into that, and it has capabilities from a certificate authority to DNS to a host of other things, and we can show you that during the demo, to where you can dictate what your users will be able to do, which machines they'll be able to log in, and what kinds of things they'll be able to do on it. So it centralizes your sudo role management, so you don't have to push sudoers files around. And it also allows you to control how users are authenticating into the systems, so it's that centralized identity source. When it is used with Active Directory, it can actually be set up in an Active Directory trust, so it functions like an Active Directory domain controller using a separate domain name. But it will allow your users to stay in one place, to be inside Active Directory, but then you can associate policies for who gets to log in and how much and what they can do on the Linux side. One of the main feedbacks or concerns that we hear about Linux admins that have to work with the Windows teams is Linux wants to control the access on their systems, and Windows admins don't generally care about the Linux side, and they want to control theirs separately. So this allows you to have that fine-grained access control a little bit more than what you can get with the Windows AD GPOs and the security context. And it gives you that ability to have your users only in one place. That's the best practices, but to be able to further confine what they can do and to actually prevent certain users from logging in entirely, if they don't need to. Okay? So that's a quick overview. I will have interchangeably in here Freeipa and RHEL. I am a RHEL product manager, so these are slides that I own from RHEL side. But Freeipa is our upstream form of identity management in RHEL. All of my engineers work in the upstream. We are the main contributors to the Freeipa development chain. We do have the ability to run Freeipa on the other Linuxes, and we have the majority of our developers are helping to do that with other community members. And if you find things that you want to help with, that you want to fix, please join us in the Freeipa community. We would love to have more help there. That we don't have enough of us to do some of the things that we know we need to do, we want to do. So we're always trying to encourage, if you want to, want to join the community and you want to help, we are happy to take contributions and to get that help as well. All right. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the policy management that you can do. So we have two main forms of rules. We've got host-based access control rules, and that's where you can look at your clients and say, okay, Jim can log in here and he'll have the ability to, SSH, but I don't want him to do any, FTP services. So you can set up a rule that says Jim can log in, he can SSH, he can do these specific things this way, but nobody's gonna be able to FTP on this particular client or group of clients because we don't want anything offloaded. And those host-based access control rules allow you to narrow that down that far. On the sudoer side, we can say, okay, Suzanne's got to be able to update the box, but she doesn't need to do anything with some of the web admin folks. So what you can do is narrow down that she can just do a specific sets of commands like you would do with a sudoers file, and that you are able to lock down what you can do, or your web admins don't need to be able to install things that you don't want on the box. So you can say web admins can do all their web admin commands, but they can't do any of the other root type admin commands. So it allows you to set up those groups and to narrow those down, and you're not having to push files around the client to client. Because I know I have some customers that, and they are using things like Ansible to help them do it, but they are pushing sudoers files out to every machine, and then if somebody leaves, they're having to go and hand edit those and change those out. The way that Freeipa works is everybody in the user is associated with a group, and you're managed by groups. So when the people leave or they change roles, you're able to move either their group membership or remove the user. You can deprecate the user, and then they no longer have access. as soon as that is done. Okay? Are there any questions? Does everybody have a better understanding as to what Freeipa and identity management and RHEL? Similar products, Red Hat supported. We all run the upstream. So what you'll see in Freeipa is what's coming into RHEL. All right, we also have the ability to generate certificates. So we have Acme certs as well as standard X509 certs. So when you're looking at Zero Trust certificate device, PKI profiles, that's what a lot of this is based off of. All right, and one of the other specialties of Freeipa and ID management in RHEL is the ability to offer multi-factor support. We're going to show you one of the ways here, but we've had things like smart card, we've had tokens, we've been able to use radius and OTP type functionality. That's still there. We've actually added into it with this most recent work and that's what we want to talk about and actually show today. Okay. So what's new? We've added, with the last release, I think it was Fedora, what are we on now? What's the Fedora release?
38.
You're 38 now. So with Fedora 36 or 37, we initially released this external IDP feature. So what it allows you to do is to be able to talk to an OAuth2 external identity provider. So that's Azure AD, that's Keycloak. It can be GitHub or Okta, anything like that, to where you can get an OAuth2 token. It allows you to take that look back with a code when you log in. It'll give you a URL to go talk to, and you take the code that it gives you. It's going to authenticate to the IDP. It's going to give you a token, and that token is going to be used when you log into SSH into the client machine. And we're able to do that now with identity management in the middle. It leverages Kerberos to help you do that. It'll help you get a Kerberos ticket to allow you to get through to the other boxes you need to and to do the things you need to do. But anytime you need to re-authenticate or to sudo, you'll be able to run that authentication flow again, and it'll challenge response, and you'll get the token grant. And it'll do that callback, and I've kind of explained it here. And this is our design diagram if you want to know how the calls are exactly going through Kerberos to SSSD and back. I'll put that up at the end and you can take a picture of that. But basically what you're doing is you SSH in like normal, SSH in Amy at domain name. It will say, okay, I see you. Here's your URL. Put this code in. You'll go back. In this case, I think we're showing Azure AD today. Yeah. So you'll put, you'll go to that URL, authenticate into Azure AD however you need to, and then you'll put in that code. It gives you that token, and then you go back to your client and you hit enter and you get in. And that's the flow from your experience. If you are working with something like Azure AD where they have a number challenge and response where you have to do the number matching, that actually still works. You do that and you get the grant that way. All right. And what's coming, and this will be in the next release of Fedora, is that FIDO2 passkey support. So we've been working with Ubicom in a partnership to help get support for this. What you'll be able to do is if you have I think it's the YubiKey 5C, it's a FIDO2 token. It doesn't have to be YubiKey, it's any FIDO2 token that follows the standard. You'll be able to associate that within IDM with a user. When you insert it into your laptop, it will be able to log you into your GNOME session if you want, or you'll be able to log into clients using that as your token. It's going to follow a similar pathway to like the things that we've done for smart card support, where you can use a smart card certificate to be able to authenticate with. It's using the same type of pathway, but it doesn't narrow you down to having to have either a PIV or CAC card. This is much more commercially available. So you'll be able to use the FIDO2 tokens that you can insert in. I think we're also looking to see how we can better support some that are like the Bluetooth enabled ones as well. And that's what's coming. Where we are with that right now, we have the OAuth2 support. We've got the Freeipa and Fedora 37. We are working with the GNOME desktop engineers to get this whole being able to log in by putting the passkey in, and it will show a window like this where it'll say, okay, touch your YubiKey, it'll put in what it needs to know who you are and to be able to log in. They, I think, have finally gotten that in, and so we've seen that merged in. All right, so now it is demo time. You ready?
Yeah, let's do the demo. All right. Yeah, let's, yep. Since I am using basically a Red Hat Azure AD instance, I'm not going to bring that up and show you with the wonderful client IDs and secret codes and stuff like that in there. So this is generally what you're going to look at when you want to add an IDP into your system. Go into the authentication, the identity provider servers, and then you get to click add. You're going to create a new one. Over on the right side, you're going to see what actually pops up on the screen. You're going to give it a name. You're going to give it a client identifier, which is you'll find in Azure AD. Azure AD, when you pop it up and you look at the administrative console, or your admin can give it to you, will give you a client ID. It's the ID for the entire organization. Then you have your choice of, most of them will have a secret. You'll drop in a secret passphrase, password in there. Then you'll have your option for a predefined IDP or a customized IDP. Customized, of course, you're going to have to supply everything. And if we look in the middle, you'll see here's our current defined IDP providers. We've got Keycloak or Red Hat SSO, which is literally the same thing. Google, GitHub, Microsoft, or Azure AD. And then right below that, it shows once you've created it, you've got your name there, your client identifier, and the scope, which is OpenID and email. So that's not what I wanted. That's what I need. Currently, I'm running KVM on this machine. I've got 3 Fedora 38 systems running. 2 of them are servers. 1 of them is the actual client. Client, of course, is named client, and then the servers are IDM and rep, which is the replica. So let's bring you. Here is my Freeipa server. Hopefully. I have the default user, admin, that's always created when you install Freeipa, and then I have 2 other users. I have Miker_IDM, which is my IDM user, and then Miker_Azure, which is my Azure AD account. You can tell email addresses are all my local.example.com. If I bring up Azure, see the normal user account. Where things change is all the way down here under user authentication types. Here's where you set up whether you want just password, if you want to use a radius server, if you want to use a 2-factor, basically the OTP, which is a password plus OTP, PKInit, a hardened password, or the external identity provider. This is the one we want, so we check it. Here is my external IP configuration that I showed earlier, Azure AD, and then my Azure AD user, mralph@redhat.com. This is how you identify who you're using in Azure AD. Here's my current workstation and SSH. We will start with Miker_IDM at client.local. You can see here, my IDM user only requires a password. I put my password in, hit enter, magic. I am now on my client machine. If I do Miker_Azure client. Am I spelling it right? Yeah. Oh. Live demo. There we go. Wondering why tab wasn't working. And dude, this worked this morning. I did it right out there. Honest. Let me make sure.
Check the username, because I've done that to myself before.
Yeah, it's
Is it Azure or Miker AD?
no, it's
Azure AD.
Micro Azure.
Okay. And you didn't uncheck the box, right?
No. Didn't mess with it. Honest engine. I do have network, so let me, okay. Okay, you don't like it there. Fine. I will go to the actual IDM box. You should. Oh, God. And I knew I should have screenshotted all this stuff. Okay. I will.
And you didn't let me bring mine that has mine on there.
No, I didn't.
Sure, ask
Sure.
questions.
So on the client config, is this all like a big auth select command, or is this?
So the client, once it's an IPA client, it doesn't care. It's going to look back to the identity management or the free IPA node, and it's going to say, what kind of auth can I do as a user? And that's what this is supposed to be doing. So you don't have to do anything on the client other than register it into the IPA domain. And then when you log in as that particular user, it should say, hey, what do I need to do? And then log you in from there. I have a suggestion. Turn off replica.
5.
Turn off replica.
Why?
Because I had the replica wasn't configured, so it was handling the response before on my demo. And when I turned it off, the master worked with the client. So
Okay.
Try
that's
that.
right. Well, I'm restarting IPA right
Yeah.
now anyway, so.
4 questions. How does
Sure.
it work with SSH keys?
So IDM can actually manage your SSH keys to where you can store them within IDM, and when you are logging in, it will go and pull your SSH keys for you so that you can use that as well on that first attempt.
Right, so it's an LDAP, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so there's, the domain controller has LDAP as the store for everything, and then it has all the layered services on top from Kerberos to DNS to Automount and the whole policy and authentication engines. So they all work together. So LDAP is what stores everything within IDM, but all the other goodies are layered on top. So LDAP is the identity store. Well, the identity store. So it's the database holding everything, and that's what gets replicated around to the nodes. That's why you have identity management, servers and replicas. When you make a change, it'll get propagated across your topology so that it gets reflected within the client. And he's going to cuss at this in a minute. Yes, more questions?
So I remember when I was in
Mm-hmm.
initially and all that, and it got me interested. I was kind of wondering, you guys had a time frame when this will show up in RHEL 9?
So the external IDP is in RHEL 9 now, is in both RHEL 8.7. With 8.7 and 9.1, this has showed up. So we have the initial where you have to provision the users into IDM, and then they'll come in that way. We are working on the next step of that, which is called SIM2, which will look back to your identity provider and see which users need to be provisioned if they don't already exist, and you'll be able to configure their membership into their groups for that policy management there. And then when they disappear out of the external IDP, we will also deprovision them automatically within IDM. That's coming. It should be, I think it's showing up in Fedora with fall of this year, so
Yeah.
it should show up in RHEL in like spring of next year.
Okay.
Yeah, and the passkey support in RHEL will show up as well. The initial is coming into Fedora with this fall, so it'll show up into RHEL with that next RHEL release. Yeah, the FIDO passkey support is he just pushed out on LinkedIn saying that it's finally in the master branch in Fedora. So it'll show up in Fedora with this next release. That means it'll get pulled into the spring releases of RHEL by the way that the cycle falls. Yeah, trust me. I live this stuff, and I'm trying to remember what's out there when. So. Mm-hmm. Rob Crittenden. Mm-hmm. Those are our IPA architects. So Alexander Bokovoy, also known as AB. Yeah. Well, I know they've had talks on Flock and FOSDEM where they've shown this. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we're working towards that. We are also Red Hat is working on giving you the ability to have like managed Linux service to where you could stand up a machine from console dot and stand it up into like AWS or Azure. We're also going to allow you, if you have identity management, to associate with it so when your clients stand up, they can automatically register themselves to your domain so that your policies get applied to your users as soon as they want to log in, as soon as that's stood up. So we're actively developing that alongside as well too. So we got a lot of things going on. So I said if anybody wants to help us in the community, we don't have enough of us to get all this done. If you want to test it for us, yes, we can actually use, for this passkey, for this external IDP, we need for you to actually help us test it, give us your feedback, what works, what doesn't work, because otherwise it's a very slow turnaround time for us as the RHEL customers use it. So we really want to hear from the Freeipa community. We've tested it, we've tried it, the instructions make sense up until this point, but we need further clarification here. We'd like to get more of that feedback, and sometimes it feels like we don't get enough. So any of that is great. Oh, yeah, Horoziak. Jakub is with doing some OpenShift work now, so yeah. Yep. Yep. So if you haven't checked SSSD, we've improved the logging immensely and given you an analyzer tool as well to where when somebody or something isn't authenticating correctly, it'll give you a session ID, a request ID that you can track through. And it'll do things like tell you how long it took or what the problem was. It makes it a whole lot easier. I came out of support. That's where I started. And I've realized all the things I wanted to fix when I got into product management. So SSSD logging was one of the things that was on my list of things that I wanted. It's much more improved. What used to take me like troubleshooting would take me an hour to sift through all the SSSD logs. I can now follow it through, and it's cut it in half to 3/4 of the time down from what it was taking me to go through and pick it out. So it's much better. So use that. That'll be much easier for you. All right. I'm still answering questions.
We found the issue.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, the fallback is going back to password, which
Okay.
does not work because there technically is no password.
Okay.
So yeah, we have no network. I
Ah.
cannot ping out.
Nice.
So
Okay. Networking is fun. We didn't sacrifice enough puppies and kittens to the demo gods today. We
I don't
have
have
to
an
do
Ethernet.
Wi-Fi. There's no.
there is no Ethernet on this thing.
We didn't want to bring the dock.
Trust.
See, if I had brought my P50, which weighs
No, it
50
still won't work.
pounds, it would, because it has a network port.
Oh, okay, yeah. Let me
But that's okay.
cancel.
All right. Other questions while we're waiting? Yeah.
What's the 502 with just a lot, without IPA on something, just like I've got a system and I want to use a smart meter?
So I don't know what we can do locally yet because we started here because most of our customers are centrally managed and local users are kind of going away. There are things that you can do with like certificates and you can store those on YubiKeys and you can do that local. But in the realm of zero trust and things, everybody doesn't want local. So we know that we will extend out on passkey support to the different types of identity providers. So I think there will be a local option at some point, but right now I don't know that there's much of one there yet. But identity management is something that you can use pretty easily, pretty quickly, and it doesn't cost anything. So you can set it up for you if you need to. We actually have a lot of, we spend a lot of time creating some automation tooling as well to like install it to help do the client stand up as well to make it easier. Have you used the Ansible free IPA tooling? Anyone? Okay. Is it? What do I need to improve? Maybe it should be the question.
It's actually there. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
It's a continual, as I explained to someone the other day, it's about 90%, 90 to 95% what you can do on command line, you can do in Ansible, using Ansible for IPA, or if you're using AAP and you've got the console access, the Red Hat official repo, which is called redhat.rel_idm.
Yeah, that was not my choice for the naming.
Yeah,
it was the name they told us we had to use.
Okay, why don't you want to?
We're not sure why. Yes.
Can you install this, like the server part of this on Ubuntu?
There is yes,
Debian.
there is free IPA for Debian. So, and we have people within the Debian community that keep up with the packages. I don't know whether they are as fast at getting it up to date. I think they are. I generally am real focused because that's who pays me. So I know what Rel and Fedora are doing. But we have Debian. We also have some SUSE contributors as well. Yes.
I know Microsoft now, I think, has you can get Active Directory as a service and through
Azure. Okay. So yes.
Azure. Well, I was curious, is anybody using Red Hat or anybody using IPA?
That's also things that we are working on, but that whole resourcing thing, that will be much further down the line. But with the Red Hat's working a lot for Linux services to be able to do some Linux management services for like the smaller people that don't have the administrators just to set it up. With what we just launched at Summit, you have the ability to create an image. You can associate with either AWS, Azure AD, GCP, have it stood up. The goal is to eventually get, for those that don't want to stand up their own identity management topology, to be able to have that as a service for you. But it is much further down. I need a ton more engineers before I can get to that anytime soon. But we're laying the groundwork here between the external identity provider, the passkey, and the working better with Keycloak. All of that is laying the groundwork for us to be able to do it.
We have a miracle.
Yay! Woo.
Didn't like
Networking
Wi-Fi, but
helps.
it likes tethering. Okay. Yes, this is what you're supposed to see. It does come up with a Microsoft.com device login, and it gives you a PIN for it. So,
Yeah, do you want to show that to them again?
yep, I am. Well, they see I tried to log in as Azure.
Okay.
And now I'm going to open up my link. Oh, this is going to be fun. Because,
Your authenticator is also on your phone?
yes, the authenticator is also on the phone. It's supposed to work. I'm logging into my Azure AD account. There's my picture. And it does take a little while to think.
After you authenticate once on the phone, it's a lot fewer steps. Ours also likes to push us to our internal Red Hat single sign-on, so we single sign-on twice. Yes, multiple single sign-ons to get on there. But once you get through that, there's our internal single sign-on. You don't get that. That's one of our benefits.
Yeah.
You just will deal with the
It
Azure
all depends
AD
on
one.
your security, how many steps you're going to have to walk through.
So instead of one password, I now have two passwords and an authenticator apps.
It's zero trust, definitely. Nobody trusts.
Yep.
Nobody trusts, and sometimes I didn't trust what you just entered.
So I've logged in with this.
And this will probably time out, and he'll do it
Nope.
again because it took too long.
It's
Did you already
now,
get
I
it?
know you all can't see this, but it's now asking me for my number.
Yeah.
So I hit yes.
I'm just saying
Another
it's going
Face
to
ID.
time out on the client side.
Oh yeah, probably will. Okay, you come up with this. Do you want to accept it? Yes,
Yes.
I want to accept it. I come back.
Hit enter.
I hit enter, and of course it's timed out. So, but
It should be
is
much
easier
faster this time.
Yep. Now it's just going to ask for this guy, and I will open up the link again. What do you mean it doesn't work? Let me. Oh, because that's the wrong one. Well, that's what. Oh, yeah. That's what happens when you hit a Control Z on a terminal. Copy. Backspace. You paste. Next.
It's me.
It is me.
Yes.
I'm hitting yes. It says I'm good to go.
Hit enter.
Yeah, it takes. It's thinking, but there I am.
Woo!
After 10 minutes, there we go. I am on my client.
Securely.
Yes, securely. Only, let's see, a token, a passcode, and then another passcode because it timed out, and then put in the wrong passcode because I hit Control C, and another passcode. So
if you do it right, it's a lot faster than what we just demoed. But this is,
Right.
This is how it goes some days.
yeah, most people, it will be just as simple as logging in with this, going to the website, putting in your PIN, and then actually I think Microsoft is now forced, or at least made the default, to where you need the authenticator and it'll pop up with a code. Code comes up, you put the code in, which is 2 to 4 digits, I think. But I think most people are doing
It's
2.
been for Azure, it's been the 2-digit. The RSA really pushed for the number matching being the way to get away from like the spam SMS vulnerabilities where hackers would just spam you with accept requests to your phone. So number matching is what they have set up as being best practices for that. I know also I get questions a lot as to can you set up IDM and a trust to Azure? And as of right now, no, because Azure AD is not a AD, it is like Keycloak. It is the OAuth2 provider. There is Azure AD DS, which is their domain services. And for a long time, they didn't have Kerberos. I think they have limited Kerberos there now, but it's not enough to be able to set up that trust entity between. But if you are using something like Azure AD, and your users are going to exist in Azure AD, then you don't need the Active Directory trust at that point. We'll just pull from that, and that's where the users exist, and then we'll be able to apply policy there. So we see the future of it moving away because Microsoft is kind of telling everyone that Active Directory itself is dead. They want to push everyone to Azure AD. So we've moved to where you can do that, apply your policy, let your Linux domain controller handle your access controls, your sudo controls, and you don't have to have that trust set up there at that point.
Yeah, this is just a default install. Besides for the 2 users, I have none, and the IDP configuration, I've done nothing to this. But here you can see the HBAC, the access controls, and the sudo controls. This is where we would create our
Yes.
create
Words
our
are hard.
rules, commands, the commands that we are allowed to use, the rules, so we can pull those commands together, and we can do it by user, we can do it by groups. You can even limit them by systems, whether it's a single system or a group of systems. So
We
yeah.
suggest managing via group and not by individual entities where you can, because individuals come and go, groups tend to stay.
yeah,
So you can manage the group membership, but apply your rules to the groups, and then when users or clients come and go, you don't have to update those. Those will already be updated in the resolution.
do have a question for the group. How many people are working in commercial or working in the Fed space? Well, how many are working in Fed space for a federal group? Okay, better than last time. So okay, pretty much everyone else is work commercial. So you can do things depending on what security rules, actually some commercials do this as well, depending on what security profiles you use, if you're using like
CIS?
CIS, STIG, PCI, DSS, certain times you'll need, SE Linux mappings, we can do that too. If you're using smart cards, we can have certificates local here. IDM does not create the certs for smart cards for you.
Well, we can. You have to use a cert util command that it gives you. Because you
Okay.
can create user certs, and then you have to put it
That's
onto
right.
like the YubiKey token. We
It's
do not
been a
provision,
while.
provision the smart card media
Yeah.
with IDM.
So we do have all that in the IDM as well. Yes, sir.
Did you use this with a credential that was issued to, say, a div, and then you have a derived credential to the
So the cert is being pushed to the derived. You would have to associate the two, and I think that's an extension we might do. Right now, we're taking the FIDO2 token. It's got a crypto credential inside it, and that's how we're registering it to the user.
Authentication on here, your free IPA, you're setting up your roles and permissions here. Now you're going to another server for actually authenticating the user, but that's only providing authentication.
No, it depends.
Depending on how you want to use it. For what we showed you today, the users exist in Azure AD. So you're doing the authentication to Azure AD saying that I am a legitimate user and I authenticated correctly to you, correct? And Azure AD responds with a token if you do. That token is what IDM is going to take and say, okay, this user requires this token grant that has this trust part to it. And when it has that, I'm going to allow this user in. So the users exist in Azure AD. IDM knows who they are and how they're supposed to authenticate. But if you didn't want to use Azure AD, you just wanted to use free IPA, you can set up your users, you can put the password in there, you can set up multi-factor auth, however you want. You can require multiple forms of authentication, and you can do that.
No way for Azure or any of the other providers there to say that this kind of authorization could only be used for like a web access and not used for an SSH access.
Okay. There's the web accesses would be SSO, unless it
Okay.
does Kerberos. It's like satellite is you'd be accessing like Red Hat Satellite or Foreman. It does do Kerberos for its web authentication, but if you're using, let's say, Salesforce, pulling it out of my rear end, it doesn't do Kerberos. So you're going to need something like SSO, Keycloak, whatever you want to call it. That will be your web authentication application. IDM, free IPA, is the client authentication. So that's really where you kind of draw the line between there. And that's good for probably 90% of the things out there. Most of them will want SSO for like SAML, OAuth2, those sort of things. This is more for just your client side and stuff that uses Kerberos.
And actually, up until we developed this, there was no way to use an OAuth2 token to log into a Linux client. This is the first time in a Linux operating system that you can actually authenticate from like OAuth2 token and SSHN from there. I know we're working through our partnerships to expand that out, but this is where it's starting. We put it in here first because we saw that there was going to be a need for it.
And
You
this
can
is
also
where,
do QR code, yep.
yeah. Unfortunately, this screen's not big enough. You can't get it. But I just now created an OTP token for my IDM user.
Yep.
So now when I log in, if I had taken a screenshot of that and got it, I would be password plus token. And it'll let me in. This is how I do it at home. I have an OTP user at home.
So we've tried to give you as much flexibility in terms of what types of multi-factor you can use to give you as many options as possible. The problem with Radius is it's based off of MD5, and MD5 is not considered secure anymore. So we're trying to find alternate methods for you to have that multi-factor auth in ways that are accessible to most everyone. Smart cards are great, but getting your hands on that media is really difficult, right? YubiKeys, you can provision the certs onto there, and some were doing that, but it's still kind of hard. We've also created some smart card provisioning setup, like tooling, to where that'll run via system roles in Ansible, so you don't have to pay for Ansible, but it's whatever comes with RHEL or with that system role to be able to do that. We're trying to give you as many ways to do good security as we can, using the best, looking to see where the market's going and what's considered best security practice of the month until we break it, until we hack it. The other thing that's coming for us too is post-quantum crypto. So we're working on that as well, and identity management Freeipa is going to work to take those crypto libraries that get put into Fedora for post-quantum to be able to use it and to be able to issue certs at that strength. So all of this is coming. We're trying to adapt to it as we can. Like I said, if you want to help in the community, we can always use more. But this is why we're driving it forward, why we're trying to give you these different ways to do it, because the better security we can do as a whole, right? The best security is good group security, but we know it's hard, so we're trying to give you tools to make it easier. And we know a lot of people are limited on time and resources and knowledge, so we're trying to balance that and trying to help as much as we can. Any other questions, comments? Anybody want to throw confetti because the demo worked?
Finally.
All right. You have anything else you want to say?
I did.
Oh, we got a hand.
Yes,
Yep.
sir.
You guys, I know you already have it, I'm just not familiar with it, but do you have any kind of self-service side of this?
There is limited self-service. You can set up, like, users can change their password type things, and there's some RBAC things that you can configure. I know from the bug reports I see, they are always wanting more self-service capabilities. And right now, self-service, extending any of that is kind of really low on our priorities until we get this finished and post-quantum handled. It's gonna take a while. Also, if anybody, I'll throw this out there, if anybody is a message bus expert, we know that we would like to be able to have a more instantaneous way of reading the topology, which is going to require some sort of message bus being added in at some point. If you'd love to talk with our architects, and maybe we can work through that. That's also on our list of things to do, but it's going to take a lot, and we don't know where to put it in yet. So I'm happy to introduce you to Alexander and to Rob, and we can start having those discussions as well. Yes? You can. If there's a better way to do instantaneous lockout that doesn't require LDAP replication, let me know. Post-quantum is throwing a lot of things at me. So I understand some of the concerns with message bus. I understand some of the security and queuing concerns, and we have to figure out how to authenticate that correctly. This is why it's on our list of things we know we probably need to do, but we don't have the brain space or the time or the resources to do it now. But we know everybody was like, okay, my employee left today, or we've gotten, I want to see an instantaneous, we've got somebody attacking on this node, we want to see this user locked out everywhere, like right here. We can't do that yet. We've got to wait for replication to happen. And replication, if you've got a lot of nodes, that can take time or be problematic. So we know everybody's like, we want them locked out, we want them locked out now. Fine, how do I do that? What do I do that with? I don't know. If we can get quantum entanglement figured out, maybe. So work on that. All right, any others? I don't think I have anything else, so we can let everybody go.
Yeah, I think so. First of all, thank you for coming in. Quite a few more people than last year during my talk. So it is happy to see everyone come in. Glad more of us are coming out to these things. If you have questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, please feel free, let us know. If you want to know more about Freeipa, installation, management, please feel free, talk to us. You might have been here for the previous talk about how Ansible sucks, but We do have, like she was saying, what was being said, we do have Ansible modules for this. It's how I build 99% of my lab environments, is using that module. So I can help with that. I even have a GitHub repo out there on a basic how to build 2 nodes in a client and add all your HBAC, sudo, stuff like that. So please feel free, talk to us. We'll be here at least for a little while longer. And thank you. Thank you for coming out and listening to us.
Thank you, guys. And if you want to talk to us, ask questions, come up, feel free. You can have that. And it's just amazing when you're up in front of people how thick your tongue gets and you're trying to speak. So, but thank you all very much.